My breath caught in my throat as I stared at the empty altar. Where is Michael? Here I am, standing in front of everyone in my pristine white suit, and my soon-to-be husband is nowhere to be found. The pastor is giving me an awkward smile. Guests are whispering among themselves, and I can see pure panic in my mother's eyes as she sits in the front row. Where is he? I whisper to my best man Victor, who's standing beside me looking like he's seen a ghost. His face has gone completely pale, and his hands are trembling slightly as he adjusts his tie for the third time. I don't know, Riley. He was here an hour ago, pacing in the back room, saying he needed some air. The church feels suffocating. 200 guests are seated behind me, all dressed in their finest clothes, waiting for a ceremony that might not happen. The flowers are perfect, white roses and baby's breath, exactly what Michael and I had chosen together during countless planning sessions. The music is ready, the photographer is positioned, and even the wedding cake is waiting in the reception hall next door. Everything is perfect except for one crucial detail: the groom. My phone buzzes in my jacket pocket. With shaking hands, I pull it out, hoping it's Michael saying he's running late, that traffic was terrible, anything that would explain his absence. Instead, I see a text that makes my world crumble. I can't do this. I'm sorry, I'm leaving town. My heart sinks to my stomach. 3 years of relationship, 6 months of engagement planning, countless nights talking about our future together, and it all ends with a single text message? I can hear the guest behind me murmuring louder now. Someone asks, "What's happening?" Another voice whispers, "Is the wedding off?" A third person mutters something about typical Michael behavior, which makes my cheeks burn with embarrassment. The pastor leans closer to me, his voice barely audible. "Son, do we need to make an announcement? The congregation is getting restless and I have another ceremony scheduled this afternoon. I want to disappear. I want to run out of here just like Michael did. How could he do this to me? To us? To our families?" Both sets of parents have invested so much into this wedding, emotionally and financially. My father took out a loan to pay for the reception venue. Michael's mother spent weeks coordinating with caterers and florists. Our siblings flew in from different states. Our college friends rearranged their schedules. And Michael just left. That's when I hear heavy footsteps echoing through the church. Every head turns toward the entrance, including mine. Through the ornate wooden doors walks Connor, Michael's older brother. He's still in his black leather jacket and dark jeans, his hair tousled like he just got off his motorcycle. There's a confidence in his stride that only certain men possess, the kind that commands attention without trying. Connor's dark eyes scan the crowd before landing on me, and for a moment time seems to stop. I've known Connor for almost 2 years, ever since Michael first brought me home to meet the family, but we've barely exchanged more than polite greetings. He's always been the mysterious older brother, the one who works late, travels for business, and keeps to himself during family gatherings. "What's the situation?" His deep voice carries across the silent church, causing several guests to shift in their seats. The pastor nervously explains that the groom is missing, and we're not sure how to proceed. Connor's jaw tightens visibly. He removes his leather jacket, revealing a simple black t-shirt that emphasizes his broad shoulders, and rolls up his sleeves like he's preparing for battle. "Well then," he heaves, his gaze fixed directly on me, "looks like I'll have to step in." My heartbeat becomes so loud I'm sure everyone can hear it. "What do you mean?" I manage to stutter, though part of me already knows what he's suggesting. Connor takes a step closer, his presence suddenly overwhelming. "Our families have been planning this alliance for months. Riley, there are business deals on the line, contracts that depend on this union. Someone has to marry you today." I can see my mother whispering frantically to Connor's mother in the front row. Both families' honor is at stake here. There are reporters from the society pages waiting outside. This wedding was supposed to be the social event of the season. If it gets canceled, the scandal will follow both our families for years. Connor moves even closer and I catch a whiff of his cologne. Something woody and masculine, that's completely different from Michael's lighter, sweeter scent. It's intoxicating and makes me feel slightly dizzy. "Think about it, Riley," he continues, his voice lower now, more intimate. "Everyone's here, Everything's paid for, and frankly, you look too good in that suit to let it go to waste. The church has gone completely silent. Even the children have stopped fidgeting. Everyone is waiting for my response. But my mind is reeling. Marry Connor? Connor, who I barely know. Connor, who seems like the complete opposite of his younger brother. Where Michael is gentle and predictable, Connor appears intense and unpredictable. Where Michael always sought approval, Connor seems to make his own rules. So what do you say, pretty boy? Connor's voice drops to almost a whisper. But in the silent church, his words carry to every corner. Will you marry me instead? The question hangs in the air like incense smoke. 200 pairs of eyes are watching me, waiting for my answer. My parents look hopeful and desperate. Connor's family seems resigned, but supportive. The pastor is checking his watch, and Connor is looking at me with an expression I can't quite read, part challenge, part genuine concern. I realize that everything that happens next depends on my answer. My future, our family's reputations, and perhaps most importantly, my own self-respect all hang in the balance of this impossible decision. You're insane, I whisper to Connor. But there's something in his eyes, a determination mixed with what almost looks like protectiveness, that scares me. Not because I think he'll hurt me, but because I can feel myself being drawn into his orbit despite every rational thought in my head. Maybe I am, he shrugs with that confident half-smile that probably gets him whatever he wants in life. But I'm not the one who ran away like a coward 10 minutes before his own wedding. There's genuine anger in his voice when he mentions Michael, and somehow that makes me feel defended, protected. It's confusing because I should be angry too, not finding comfort in a near stranger's indignation on my behalf. The pastor clears his throat awkwardly, and I remember that we're not alone in this surreal moment. Gentlemen, I really do need you to make a decision. The guests are getting restless, and honestly, this is the most unusual situation I've encountered in 20 years of performing ceremonies. Connor looks past me to our families, then back to my face. His expression softens slightly. It's your choice, Riley. I won't force you into anything, but you need to understand the consequences. If this wedding doesn't happen today, his voice is gentle but firm, and I can tell he's not trying to manipulate me. He's stating facts. Both our families will face serious financial and social consequences. Your father's business partnership with our company, my mother's position on the charity board, the contracts that were signed based on this alliance. It'll all fall apart. My eyes start to burn with unshed tears, and I have to blink rapidly to keep them from falling. This is absolutely nothing like the wedding I dreamed about. Michael and I had planned a gentle, romantic ceremony filled with personal vows and meaningful traditions. Connor is the complete opposite of his brother. Rough around the edges, mysterious, and frankly intimidating in a way that makes my pulse race for reasons I don't want to examine. I don't even know you properly, I admit in a whisper, hating how vulnerable I sound. We've maybe had 5 actual conversations in 2 years. Connor steps closer and I can feel the warmth radiating from his body. He places his hand on my shoulder and his touch is surprisingly gentle for someone with such calloused hands. We'll figure it out as we go, Riley. Sometimes the best relationships start as partnerships and grow into something more. The way he says something more sends an unexpected shiver down my spine. What is wrong with me? My fiancé just abandoned me and I'm having inappropriate reactions to his brother's touch. The pastor makes the announcement that the ceremony will continue with a different groom and the reaction from the guests is immediate and varied. Some gasp in shock, others murmur excitedly, "This will certainly be a wedding to remember." I can hear my college roommate Jake whispering to his boyfriend, "This is like something out of a romance novel." Someone else mutters, "I always thought Connor was more reliable than Michael anyway." Connor quickly disappears to change into Michael's spare tuxedo, which was hanging in the small preparation room. While he's gone, I stand there in a daze, accepting hasty congratulations and surprised comments from family members who are trying to process this dramatic turn of events. My aunt kisses my cheek and whispers, "Connor's a good man, honey. Different from Michael, but maybe that's what you need." When Connor returns, I barely recognize him. Gone is the casual bad boy in leather and denim. In his place stands a devastatingly handsome man in a perfectly fitted black tuxedo. He's clean-shaven now, his dark hair combed back, and the formal attire emphasizes his broad shoulders and tall frame. For a moment I forget to breathe. "Ready?" he asks, offering me his arm with a slight smile that seems almost shy. A surprising contrast to his earlier confidence. My hand trembles as I take his arm, and immediately I'm aware of the solid muscle beneath the expensive fabric. As we walk toward the altar together, everything feels surreal, like I'm watching someone else's life unfold. The church that felt suffocating 10 minutes ago now feels intimate, almost romantic, with the afternoon sunlight streaming through the stained glass windows and casting colorful patterns across the floor. The pastor begins the ceremony. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Connor and Riley." But his words sound muffled and distant. All I can focus on is Connor's presence beside me, his height, his subtle cologne, the way he stands with absolute confidence while I'm barely keeping myself upright. When it comes time for the vows, the pastor asks, "Do you, Connor, take Riley to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for better or worse, till death do you part?" Connor's voice is clear and firm as he looks directly into my eyes. "I do." There's something in his tone that makes me believe he means it, even though this whole situation is impossible and insane. Then it's my turn. "Do you, Riley, take Connor to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for better or worse, till death do you part?" The words stick in my throat. This morning I woke up expecting to marry Michael, and now I'm about to legally bind myself to a man I hardly know. But as I look into Connor's dark eyes, I see something that Michael's never shown me: complete, unwavering certainty. Connor isn't here because he has to be. He chose to be here when I needed someone most. "I do," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. The simple words feel like they carry the weight of destiny, and I realize that whatever happens next, my life will never be the same. The ring ceremony is when everything becomes terrifyingly real. Connor's hand holds mine with a gentleness that catches me completely off guard. Michael was never this careful with me, never this attentive to whether his touch was welcome. When Connor slides the wedding band onto my finger, the same ring that was supposed to bind me to his brother, he whispers so only I can hear, "Breathe, Riley. You look like you're about to faint." There's a teasing quality to his voice but also genuine concern, and I realize I've been holding my breath through most of this surreal ceremony. "You may kiss the groom," the pastor announces, and I feel my cheeks burn with embarrassment. Connor hesitates for just a moment, his eyes searching mine for permission. Then he gently cups my face with both hands, his thumbs brushing against my cheekbones. "Is this okay?" he whispers so softly that only I can hear him over the expectant murmur of the crowd. I can barely manage a nod, but it's enough. His kiss is soft, brief, and completely different from what I expected. Where I thought there might be awkwardness or obligation, instead there's something that feels almost tender. Electric current seems to shoot through my entire body from the point where our lips meet. The guests burst into applause, but all I can focus on is the lingering warmth of Connor's mouth against mine and the way his hands feel steady and sure against my skin. The reception that follows is a masterclass in awkwardness. We're seated at the head table, side by side, while everyone acts like this was always the plan. Aunt Margaret approaches with her usual dramatic flair. "Oh, what a beautiful couple you make. Connor, you look so handsome in that tuxedo." She leans in conspiratorially. "And honestly, dear, Connor is so much more mature and stable than Michael ever was. This might be a blessing in disguise." I want to crawl under the table with every compliment, but Connor handles it all with surprising grace. He's transformed from the leather-jacketed rebel who walked into the church into the perfect wedding host, charming our relatives and deflecting awkward questions with diplomatic skill. When my cousin Sarah asks with barely concealed curiosity, "So how long have you two been secretly seeing each other?" This seems so sudden but so right. Connor doesn't miss a beat. "Sometimes the heart wants what it wants," he replies smoothly, his hand finding mine under the white tablecloth. "Riley and I have known each other for years through family gatherings. Sometimes love grows quietly in the background before you even realize it's there." His touch under the table is warm and reassuring, his thumb tracing gentle circles on my palm. Even though I know this is all an act for our families and guests, his touch sends shivers up my arm. What is wrong with me? How can I be having these reactions to Connor when this morning I was preparing to pledge my life to Michael? The DJ announces the first dance, and Connor stands, extending his hand to me with a slight bow that's both playful and gentlemanly. Shall we, husband? The word husband coming from his lips makes something flutter in my chest that I absolutely refuse to examine right now. On the dance floor, Connor's hand settles on my waist while his other hand intertwines with mine. He's a surprisingly good dancer, leading with confidence while being careful not to step on my feet. We sway to the romantic ballad that Michael and I had chosen months ago, but somehow it doesn't feel wrong with Connor. It feels different, natural in a way I didn't expect. I know this isn't how you imagined your wedding day, Connor says quietly as we move together, his voice low enough that only I can hear over the music. I'm sorry about Michael. I'm sorry you had to go through that humiliation. The sincerity in his voice almost breaks down the emotional walls I've been desperately trying to maintain all day. Why did he run? I finally ask the question that's been burning in my mind. We talked about everything. We planned our whole future. How could he just leave? Connor's jaw tightens, and for a moment I see a flash of what might be old pain in his expression. My brother has always been a runner, Riley. When things get too real, when commitment becomes more than just a word, he panics and disappears. It's not about you, it's about him and his inability to handle adult responsibilities. Have you two always been so different? I find myself genuinely curious about the family dynamics I'm now technically part of. Connor looks down at me, and for just a moment his carefully maintained composure slips. Like oil and water since we were kids. He gets everything handed to him easily. Charm, popularity, opportunities. I've had to fight for everything I have. Maybe that's why I don't give up when things get complicated. There's something in the way he says this last part that makes me think he's not just talking about general life philosophy. Is he talking about me? About this situation? Before I can process that thought fully, Connor's phone buzzes in his pocket. He ignores it at first, but it buzzes again, then a third time in rapid succession. With an apologetic look he checks the screen, and I watch his expression change completely, his face darkening with what looks like a mixture of anger and frustration. What is it? I ask, suddenly concerned by the dramatic shift in his mood. Without a word he shows me the screen. A text from Michael. I made a mistake. I'm coming back. Don't let him marry you. The irony would be laughable if it weren't so devastating. Too late, I whisper, staring at the message. We're already married. Connor's arm tightens around my waist. And there's something possessive in the gesture that sends an unexpected thrill through me. Yes, he says firmly, his eyes meeting mine with an intensity that makes my meth catch. You're my husband now, Riley. Legally and officially. The way he emphasizes "my" makes something deep in my chest flutter with an emotion I'm not ready to name. He's got some nerve, Connor mutters, sliding his phone back into his pocket with barely controlled anger. I can feel his grip tighten protectively around my hand, and the possessive gesture sends an unwelcome thrill through my confused emotions. What do we do? I whisper, panic rising in my chest like bile. Around us, the reception continues in blissful ignorance. Guests laughing, dancing, celebrating what they believe is a romantic love story rather than the complicated mess it actually is. Connor's dark eyes scan the reception hall, taking in the scene with military precision. Our families are mingling, his business associates are networking over cocktails, and the photographer is still capturing candid moments of our supposed happiness. We don't do anything, he says firmly, his voice low but decisive. You're my husband now, legally and officially. A text message doesn't change that. But Michael's words keep repeating in my mind like a broken record. I made a mistake. Did he really make a mistake? Or were those just cold feet that have now melted away, leaving behind regret and desperation? I've known Michael for 3 years. Loved him, built dreams with him. Connor and I have shared maybe a dozen conversations in all that time. How can I possibly choose between a known quantity that hurt me and an unknown variable that saved me? I need some air, I managed to say, making excuses to the nearest relatives before heading toward the terrace doors. Connor follows without question, and I'm grateful for his silent support even as my mind reels with confusion. The evening breeze is cool against my flushed cheeks, and the city lights spread out below us like scattered diamonds. The reception venue is on the 20th floor of an upscale hotel, and from up here the world seems both infinite and impossibly small. "Talk to me," Connor says, leaning against the stone railing beside me. "I can see you're conflicted, and I'd rather know what you're thinking than guess." His honesty is refreshing after a day of diplomatic answers and careful performances. I take a deep breath, trying to sort through the emotional chaos in my head. How do I know this is the right decision? Michael and I had plans. Dreams we built together over 3 years. We have an apartment lease, vacation bookings, a whole life mapped out, and you and I were strangers who happen to be legally bound now. Connor turns toward me, his expression serious in the golden light spilling from the reception hall windows. "Dreams with someone who couldn't even face you today. Riley, I may barely know you, but even I know you deserve better than someone who abandons you when things get serious." There's a passion in his voice that surprises me, as if my worth is something he's genuinely invested in defending. But what if he really did just panic? What if he does it again? Connor interrupts gently. What if next time it's not a wedding but a job opportunity, or buying a house, or any other major life decision? Can you build a life with someone you can't trust to show up when it matters? His words hit harder than I want to admit because they echo fears I've been pushing down for months. Michael's pattern of disappearing when stress levels rise, his tendency to make promises he doesn't keep, his habit of letting other people clean up his messes, including, apparently, his own brother. Before I can respond, there's a commotion from inside the reception hall. Through the glass doors, I can see guests turning toward the entrance, their expressions shifting from celebration to confusion to outright shock. Connor's entire body tenses beside me. "He's here," Connor growls, and there's something primal in his voice that makes my pulse spike. We rush back inside to find Michael standing near the entrance, still in the same casual clothes he was wearing when he left me at the altar, wrinkled khakis and a button-down shirt that looks like he's been sleeping in it. His hair is disheveled, his eyes are red-rimmed, and he looks like he's been driving for hours without stopping. The contrast between his appearance and the elegant reception is jarring. "Riley," he calls out desperately, when he spots me across the crowded room. Conversations stop mid-sentence, champagne glasses pause halfway to lips, and even the DJ seems to sense the drama, lowering the music to a barely audible level. "I need to talk to you, please." Connor immediately steps in front of me, his body language shifting into full protective mode. "You lost that right when you ran away like a coward," he says loudly enough for half the room to hear. The tension between the two brothers is thick enough to cut, and I feel like I'm caught in the eye of a hurricane. "I panicked," Michael pleads, his eyes desperately trying to meet mine around Connor's imposing frame. "Wedding nerves, cold feet, whatever you want to call it. But driving away, all I could think about was losing you forever. 3 years, Riley. That has to mean something. I love you." Connor lets out a bitter laugh that makes several nearby guests flinch. "Love? You call abandoning him at the altar love? You call humiliating him in front of 200 people love?" Michael's face flushes red with anger and embarrassment. "And what do you call this, Connor? Swooping in the moment I'm gone? Taking advantage of the situation? Using his vulnerability for your own agenda? Stop!" I finally shout, my voice cutting through their argument and silencing the entire reception hall. Every single person, guests, staff, even the children, turns to stare at me. My parents look mortified. Connor's family seems ready for war, and Michael looks hopeful in a way that breaks my heart. Connor stands rigid beside me, his hands clenched into fists. "This is supposed to be my wedding day," I say, my voice shaking with emotion but carrying clearly in the silence. "Not a battlefield for you two to settle whatever issues you've had since childhood." The weight of 200 expectant gazes presses down on me as I realize that once again, everything depends on what I say next. But this time it's not just about business deals or family honor. This time it's about my heart, my future, and figuring out what I actually want rather than what everyone else expects from me. The silence stretches on, heavy with anticipation, as two brothers wait for me to choose between them. The reception continues around us, but the atmosphere has shifted dramatically. What should have been a celebration now feels like a tense standoff, with guests pretending not to stare while Michael refuses to leave the premises. He hovers around the edges of the party like a lost puppy, nursing a whiskey and occasionally catching my eye with desperate, pleading looks that make my chest ache with confusion. Connor barely leaves my side, his protective instincts on high alert. Every time Michael takes a step in our direction, Connor subtly repositions himself between us, his hand finding the small of my back or my elbow in gestures that appear casual but feel possessive. I'm suffocating between their conflict, caught in an emotional tug-of-war that I never asked to be part of. "Can we please talk privately?" Michael asks during a brief moment when Connor steps away to speak with his father about some business matter. His voice is hoarse, probably from crying or shouting or both, and his usually perfect appearance is disheveled in a way that makes him look younger and more vulnerable than I've seen him in years. Connor returns before I can answer, immediately sensing the tension. "Whatever you want to say, you can say it in front of me," he states firmly, his voice carrying the authority of someone who's used to being obeyed. "I'm his husband now." The word husband coming from Connor's lips still sounds strange, but there's something about the way he says it that sends an unexpected thrill through me. It sounds natural, right? Like he's already claimed me in ways that go deeper than legal documents. Michael's eyes fill with unshed tears, and for a moment he looks like the boy I first fell in love with in college. Uncertain, emotional, desperately seeking approval. "Riley, please, 5 minutes. For everything we had, for 3 years of history, just give me 5 minutes to explain." Against Connor's visible disapproval and my own better judgment, I find myself nodding. "Okay, 5 minutes." Connor's jaw tightens, but he doesn't protest as Michael leads me to a small side room off the main reception hall. The moment the door closes behind us, Michael's composure crumbles completely. "I made the biggest mistake of my life," he starts immediately, words tumbling out in a rush like he's afraid I'll change my mind and leave. "I got scared, Riley. Marriage felt so permanent, so final. I kept thinking about how young we still are, how much life we haven't lived yet, and I panicked." His hands reach for mine, but I instinctively step back, creating distance between us. The rejection clearly stings him, but I need space to think, to process what he's saying without the distraction of physical contact. "You did lose me," I say, surprising myself with how firm and steady my voice sounds. "You left me standing there, humiliated in front of everyone who matters to us. Do you have any idea how that felt? To read that text and realize that the person I thought I knew better than anyone had just abandoned me without even having the courage to face me." I know, he says desperately, running his hands through his hair in a gesture I once found endearing but now just seems frantic. "But it's not too late, Riley. We can fix this. Annul the marriage with Connor. It was done under duress anyway. No court would uphold it. We can start fresh. Maybe elope somewhere quiet where there's no pressure, no expectations. Just..." His words hit me like a slap. "Like you tried to do today?" I cut him off, anger finally surfacing after hours of confusion and hurt. "Michael, I've known you for 3 years, and never once did I think you were capable of abandoning me like this. How am I supposed to trust you again? What happens the next time you get scared? The next time commitment feels too permanent?" Before Michael can answer, the door opens and Connor enters without knocking. There's something dangerous in his expression, a protective fury that makes the air in the small room feel electric with tension. "Time's up," Connor says firmly, his dark eyes moving between Michael and me like he's assessing a threat. Michael's face flushes with renewed anger. "This doesn't concern you, Connor. This is between Riley and me." "Everything concerning Riley concerns me now," Connor replies without hesitation, stepping closer to me in a gesture that's both protective and possessive. "He's my husband, legally and officially. You gave up any claim to him when you ran away like a coward." The possessiveness in Connor's tone sends strange butterflies through my stomach, making me feel desired and protected in ways that Michael never managed in 3 years together. Michael turns to me with desperation written across every feature. "You can't seriously want to stay married to him, Riley. You don't even know him." "Not really." "What about our apartment lease? Our savings account? The trip to Europe we've been planning for months? What about all the dreams we built together?" Connor remains silent beside me, but I can see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands clench and unclench at his sides. He's letting me make this choice without pressure, and somehow that makes me feel more supported than Michael's desperate pleading. I realize that this decision is entirely in my hands. Two men standing before me, both in my life for different reasons, both wanting different things from me. One who represents 3 years of history but also broke my trust in the most fundamental way possible. Another who's essentially a stranger but showed up when I needed someone most, offering stability and protection without asking for anything in return. I need time, I finally say, looking between them both. Both of you need to understand that this has been the most insane day of my life, and I can't think straight with you both pressuring me for immediate answers. Connor nods respectfully, his expression softening slightly. Take all the time you need, Riley. I meant what I said earlier. I won't force you into anything you don't want. But Michael protests immediately. Time? Riley, every moment you stay married to him makes it harder to fix what we had. Every day that passes makes this situation more real, more permanent. Don't let him manipulate you into— Maybe, Connor says quietly, his voice cutting through Michael's protests like a blade. Some things aren't meant to be fixed. Maybe some things are broken beyond repair. 3 days after the wedding, I find myself living in Connor's downtown apartment, a temporary arrangement until this impossible situation gets sorted out somehow. The space is nothing like what I expected, where I imagined a typical bachelor pad. Instead, I find a tastefully decorated home with warm colors, comfortable furniture, and actual books on the shelves instead of just a massive TV and gaming setup. Connor has been surprisingly considerate as a roommate, giving me the master bedroom while he camps out on the living room couch. The gesture is both thoughtful and awkward, a constant reminder that we're married strangers trying to navigate an impossible situation with as much dignity as possible. You don't have to sleep on the couch, I tell him one evening as I watch him arranging pillows and blankets on the leather sofa that's clearly too short for his tall frame. This is your home. I can take the couch. Or we could figure out some other arrangement. It's fine, he shrugs, not meeting my eyes as he shakes out a spare sheet. You're dealing with enough upheaval already. The least I can do is make sure you're comfortable while you figure things out. His thoughtfulness makes me feel guilty rather than grateful. Here I am, confused and conflicted about my feelings, mourning the end of one relationship while trying to understand my growing attraction to a man I barely know. And Connor is genuinely trying to make everything as easy as possible for me without asking for anything in return. Michael calls constantly throughout those 3 days. Morning, afternoon, evening, and late at night. Text messages pile up on my phone with increasing desperation. Please talk to me. I miss you. This is killing me. Connor isn't right for you. Come home. Connor never complains about the constant interruptions, but I notice how his jaw tightens every time my phone rings, how his shoulders become more rigid when Michael's name appears on the screen. You can block his number, Connor suggests gently one evening as we sit down to dinner. Take out Chinese food eaten at his small dining table like we're an actual couple instead of two people thrown together by circumstances. You don't owe him your constant availability after what he did. I can't just erase 3 years of history, I admit, pushing lo mein around on my plate without really eating. Even if I wanted to, there are practical things to handle. Lease agreements, shared bank accounts, belongings to divide up. I can't just pretend he never existed. Connor sets down his fork and looks at me directly, his dark eyes serious and understanding. I'm not asking you to erase anything, Riley. I'm not forcing you to make any decisions you're not ready for. If you want to go back to him, I'll understand. We can get an annulment, divide any shared assets, and pretend this whole crazy situation never happened. Is that what you want? I ask, and I'm surprised by how much his answer actually matters to me. Somewhere in the past 3 days, Connor's opinion has become important in ways I don't fully understand. Connor hesitates, and I can see him choosing his words carefully. What I want doesn't matter in this situation. This whole thing is completely messed up. You married me out of obligation and family pressure, not choice. You shouldn't have to stay bound to that decision if it's not what makes you happy. That night, sleep eludes me completely. Connor's words replay in my head on an endless loop. Did I marry him purely out of obligation? Or was there something else? Some instinct or attraction that I haven't admitted to myself? I find myself thinking about the way his hand felt when he helped me during the ceremony, the way his kiss affected me more than it should have, the way his presence makes me feel safe and protected in ways that Michael never managed. Unable to stay in bed with my racing thoughts, I quietly open my bedroom door and discover that Connor is still awake on the couch, scrolling through his phone with a small lamp casting warm light across his features. "Can't sleep either?" I ask softly, not wanting to startle him. He looks up, surprised to see me. "Don't worry about me. You should get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be another difficult day dealing with all the practical aftermath of this situation." Instead of taking his advice, I find myself walking over to sit beside him on the couch, drawn by something I can't quite name. "Connor, can I ask you something personal? Why did you really step in that day? Family business and social obligations aside. You could have let the wedding get canceled. You could have let our families handle the scandal and consequences. Why did you put yourself in this position?" Connor puts his phone down and considers my question carefully, like he's debating how honest to be. "You want the truth?" he asks finally. "Yes. I think I deserve that much after everything. Honestly, because I couldn't stand seeing you hurt like that." His admission surprises both of us, and I can see vulnerability in his expression that he usually keeps carefully hidden. "When you read Michael's text, you looked so broken, devastated, and I couldn't just stand there and watch that happen to you, not when I could do something about it. But you barely knew me before that day." I point out, confused by his level of concern for someone who was essentially a stranger. "I knew enough," he interrupts gently, his voice taking on a softer quality. "Michael talked about you constantly. At family dinners, business meetings, casual conversations. How kind you are, how you always see the good in people. How you laugh at the stupidest jokes and make everyone around you feel more relaxed and happy." Connor smiles slightly, lost in some memory. "I always wondered what kind of person could make my cynical, self-centered brother talk about someone else with such obvious affection. What kind of person could bring out the best in someone like Michael?" My heart does something strange. A flutter, a skip, something that feels dangerously close to hope. "You seemed angry with him at the wedding though. Angrier than the situation warranted." Connor's expression darkens immediately. "Because he's an idiot who threw away the best thing that ever happened to him." He looks at me with an intensity that makes my breath catch. "Riley, in these 3 days of living together, sharing meals and conversations and quiet moments, I feel like I understand you better than Michael did in 3 years. He saw you as his comfort zone, his safe choice. I see you as someone worth fighting for." Before I can process that statement fully or figure out how to respond, Connor's phone buzzes with an incoming text. He glances at it automatically, then his entire expression changes, color draining from his face as he stares at the screen. "What is it?" I ask urgently, alarmed by his reaction. Without speaking, Connor shows me the screen. A text from an unknown number. "Your marriage is a sham and I have proof. Pay me $50,000, or everyone will know the truth." Who could this be, I ask, panic rising in my chest as I stare at the threatening message on Connor's phone. The words seem to blur together as my mind races through possibilities. Reporters, disgruntled wedding guests, someone with a grudge against our families. Connor's hands clench into fists, and I can see the protective anger building in his expression. "I don't know, but whoever this is picked the wrong people to mess with." His fierce determination to protect me sends an unexpected thrill of safety through my confused emotions. Even in the middle of this crisis, what if they really do have proof that our marriage is fake? I whisper, my voice barely audible in the quiet apartment. What if they can expose everything, the real reason we got married, the business deals, the family pressures? What if they destroy both our families' reputations? Connor turns to face me fully, his dark eyes intense and serious. "Riley, listen to me very carefully. Our marriage might have started as a solution to an impossible problem, but it's real now. Legally, emotionally. At least for me it is." My heart skips several beats. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Connor says softly, moving closer to me on the couch until I can feel the warmth radiating from his body, "that these past 3 days, watching you smile at stupid television shows, seeing you help me cook dinner even though you're a terrible chef, having real conversations with you late at night, None of that felt fake to me. It felt like what a real marriage should be, what I always hoped a marriage could be. Before I can process his words or figure out how to respond, Connor's phone rings loudly in the silence of the apartment. Unknown number flashing on the screen. He accepts the call and puts it on speaker, his jaw set with determination. Connor speaking. "Ah, the happy groom himself," says a familiar voice, dripping with mockery and bitterness. My blood runs cold as I recognize the speaker. It's Victor, my supposed best man who mysteriously disappeared right after Michael ran away from the altar. "Victor?" I gasp, unable to hide my shock. "You're behind this?" surprised Riley. Victor's laugh is harsh and bitter. Nothing like the warm friend I thought I knew. "Did you really think I'd just disappear quietly and let you play happy families with Mr. Perfect here while Michael destroys himself with guilt and regret?" Connor's voice drops to a dangerously low register that makes me shiver. "What exactly do you want, Victor? Money? Revenge? What's your endgame here?" "I want justice." Victor spits through the phone, his anger palpable even through the electronic connection. "Michael loved Riley for 3 years, planned their entire future together, shared everything with him, and you swooped in like a vulture the moment he had a moment of panic and doubt. Do you have any idea where Michael is right now? He's drinking himself into oblivion because he thinks he's lost Riley forever. He lost Riley the moment he abandoned him at the altar." Connor growls, his protective instincts flaring. "He made that choice himself, and you took advantage of that moment." Victor shouts, his voice cracking with emotion. "But here's what you don't know, Connor. I have photographs, pictures of you watching Riley from across the room at family gatherings, staring at him during Michael's birthday parties, following his every move with your eyes when you thought no one was looking. You've been in love with your brother's boyfriend for years, haven't you?" My breath stops completely. I turn to stare at Connor, searching his face for denial, for surprise, for anything that would contradict Victor's accusation. Instead, I see guilt, resignation, and something that might be relief at finally having his secret exposed. "Is that true?" I whisper, barely able to form the words. Connor's eyes close in defeat, and his silence tells me everything I need to know. "Victor, you don't understand the whole situation." "I understand perfectly," Victor continues triumphantly, "and unless you transfer $50,000 to the account I'm about to send you, I'm releasing these photos to every gossip blog, newspaper, and social media meme in the city. Jealous brother steals groom at the altar." Can you imagine the headlines? Your precious reputation, your business deals, your family's standing in society, all of it destroyed by the truth. Connor stands up abruptly, pacing to the window like a caged animal. "Fine. You want money? Let's meet face to face and settle this. But you leave Riley completely out of whatever twisted game you're playing." "Oh no," Victor laughs. And there's something genuinely unhinged in the sound. "Riley is the star of this whole story. He deserves to know the truth about his knight in shining armor. He deserves to know that his rescue was motivated by years of obsession and unrequited love. Meet me at the old pier downtown at midnight. Come alone or I release everything to the press immediately." The line goes dead, leaving Connor and me sitting in heavy silence. The weight of Victor's revelation hangs between us like a physical barrier, changing everything I thought I understood about the past few days, about Connor's motivations, about the feelings I've been developing. "Connor," I finally managed to whisper, my voice shaking with a mixture of betrayal and something else I can't identify. "How long have you been in love with me?" He turns from the window, and in his eyes I see years of hidden longing, carefully suppressed desire, and the kind of deep emotional pain that comes from wanting something you believe you can never have. "Since the first time Michael brought you to a family dinner," he admits, his voice barely above a whisper. "Since the moment you laughed at my father's terrible jokes and helped my mother clear the table without being asked. Since you treated our family's housekeeper with the same respect you showed my parents. Since you made Michael happier than I'd ever seen him, and I realized that I wanted to be the person who could make you smile like that." The confession hangs in the air between us, raw and honest and completely devastating. Everything I thought I knew about our situation has just been turned upside down, and I have no idea what to think or feel or believe anymore. "Since the first time Michael brought you home 2 years ago," Connor continues, his voice barely above a whisper, each word seeming to cost him something precious. You were laughing at some ridiculous story Michael was telling about his college professor, and your smile literally lit up the entire room. Everyone was drawn to you. My parents, my sister, even our normally antisocial housekeeper was smiling. And I knew right then that I was in serious trouble. My world feels like it's spinning off its axis. You've been in love with me for 2 years. While I was with your brother? While I was building a life with Michael? Connor runs both hands through his dark hair, a gesture of frustration and self-recrimination that makes him look younger and more vulnerable than I've ever seen him. I tried everything to make it stop. I avoided family gatherings, made excuses not to come around when I knew you'd be there. But Michael wouldn't shut up about you. He'd show me pictures from your dates, tell me about your conversations, ask for advice about gifts to buy you. Every interaction just made it worse. That's why you were always so cold to me. I realize aloud, pieces of a puzzle I didn't even know existed, suddenly falling into place. I thought you didn't like me, that you disapproved of your brother's choice somehow. I was protecting myself, Connor says, his eyes finally meeting mine with painful honesty. And I was trying to protect you too. What kind of person falls in love with their brother's boyfriend? What kind of selfish bastard develops feelings for someone who's clearly happy with someone else? I thought if I kept my distance, if I stayed cold and polite, these feelings would eventually fade away. Tears burned behind my eyes as I processed the magnitude of what he's telling me. But they didn't fade, they only got stronger, he admits, his voice cracking slightly. Every time I saw you two together, every time Michael talked about your future plans, every time I watched you being kind to my family or laughing at inside jokes, it was torture. But I never would have acted on it. Riley, I swear to you I never would have interfered in your relationship. Connor, I know how messed up this is, he says quickly, like he's afraid I'll run away if he doesn't get everything out at once. I know you probably hate me now, and I understand and you can never trust me again. But Victor is right about one thing. When Michael ran away, part of me was relieved. Finally I had a chance to save you from humiliation, to show you that someone could actually cherish you the way you deserve to be cherished. And the blackmail? Connor checks his watch and grabs his jacket from a nearby chair. I'm going to meet Victor and end this. I'll pay him whatever he wants to keep you out of this mess and protect your reputation. No. I stand up firmly, surprising myself with my conviction. We're going together. Riley. It could be dangerous. Victor is clearly unhinged, and Michael will probably be there too. I don't want you caught in the middle of. It's my life too, Connor. My marriage, my reputation, my choice. I step closer to him, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. Besides, I'm not letting you face this alone. Not after everything you've done for me. The pier at midnight is exactly as ominous as it sounds. Fog rolls in from the harbor, and the old wooden structure creaks ominously under our feet as we walk toward the figure waiting at the end. Victor stands there with a briefcase at his feet, but he's not alone. Michael is slumped on a nearby bench, clearly drunk and looking like he hasn't slept or eaten properly in days. The whole dysfunctional family, Victor sneers as we approach. How perfectly dramatic. Here's your money, Connor says without preamble, holding up a leather briefcase. 50,000 in cash. Now delete whatever photos you have and disappear from our lives. Victor laughs, but there's no humor in the sound. Oh, but we're just getting to the interesting part. Michael, tell them what you told me earlier about why you really ran away from the wedding. Michael looks up with bloodshot eyes, swaying slightly as he tries to focus on us. I saw it, he slurs, his words barely coherent. At every family gathering, every birthday party, every holiday dinner, the way you looked at him, Connor, you were in love with my boyfriend, and I couldn't handle the competition anymore. What? I gasped, staring between the two brothers. I ran away because I knew, Michael continues, his voice breaking with emotion, and alcohol. Deep down, I knew that Riley deserved someone who loved him completely, without reservation or doubts. And I was too jealous of my own brother to be that person. But I also couldn't bear the thought of watching you two together, knowing that he could give you something I never could. Victor's triumphant expression begins to falter as his carefully planned revelation backfires spectacularly. This isn't how this was supposed to go. Connor steps forward, his posture protective but no longer defensive. You wanted the truth, Victor. Here's the complete truth. Yes, I'm in love with Riley. I have been for 2 years, but I never would have acted on those feelings if Michael hadn't abandoned him. I never would have pursued someone else's partner, no matter how I felt. He turns to face me directly, his eyes intense and unwavering. And now, after these past few days of living together, sharing meals and conversations and quiet moments, I've realized something important. Sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected circumstances. Sometimes what looks like a disaster is actually a chance for something beautiful. Connor takes my hands in his and I can feel the slight tremor in his fingers. Riley, I'm in love with you. Not as a rebound, not as Michael's replacement, not as some consolation prize. I love you for who you are, your kindness, your strength, your ability to find humor in impossible situations. I want to build a real life with you, if you'll let me, if you can forgive the deception and trust me with your heart. My heart pounds as I look between the 3 men who have shaped this impossible situation. Victor with his failed blackmail scheme crumbling around him, Michael drowning in his own regrets and poor choices, and Connor offering me his whole heart with complete vulnerability and honesty. For the first time since this entire mess began, I know exactly what I want. Connor, I say, stepping toward him and away from the shadows of my past, I love you too.